So I saved my document that I named last name first initial dash logo, and this is logo brainstorming. So we were looking at using the Pathfinder to combine various shapes together to add complexity, to make more interesting shapes, and in some cases to simplify shapes so you don't have a bunch of shapes stacked on top of each other. Maybe you simplify it into one simple shape, like I made this keyhole from two shapes, right? What were the two shapes I put together there? Remember?
Circle and triangle.
Right, the circle and triangle combined, and that was using the Pathfinder panel, which I've got up still here. Using, you guys remember which button it was? Was it unite? Was it minus front? Was it intersect or exclude? Unite. Yeah, unite combined shapes. So then I was going through the second row here, the Pathfinders, and just experimenting with what they do, and I was about to show you what you could use crop for. So crop is good if you, let's say you made a pattern. And so let's say, let me duplicate this. I'm going to option drag a duplicate out of this. And I happen to know that crop doesn't like strokes. And this has a stroke on it that is a dashed line. That's how I got the polka dot effect. It's a stroke line that's dashed. But sometimes if you want to, when you're using Pathfinder, those strokes disappear on you. So, like, just to show you quickly, and also when you are scaling objects with strokes, it's important that you set your preferences so that you can scale. Because let's see, if I hold shift and I scale this down, that's what I like, is I like to see the stroke actually scale with the object. I'm going to undo that scale though and just go into my Illustrator preferences and go to general, because I have scale, strokes, and effects checked on. So you're going to want to check if you have that on or not. Let's say I uncheck it. Uncheck scale, strokes, and effects. And I say, okay, there. And now I scale this down. I'm holding shift to retain the proportions. Whoops. Okay. See how big those, that stroke, which the dashed line, I mean, it's kind of cool like that, but if you want the stroke appearance to scale with the object, then you have to change that preference.
So you check the box that says scale, strokes, and effects?
Yeah, so you go to Illustrator preferences and general, and I like to have scale, strokes, and effects checked, especially when you get to the point of doing the dime size test and scaling your logo down. You don't want the stroke to become really clunky in relation to the size of your overall artwork. So now when I scale this down, it scales the stroke down, the polka dot look down. So that's what happened to the stroke when it was big and clunky, and that's what happens when it scales the stroke down in relation to the object. Okay, so let's say I want to make a pattern with this. So I'm just going to duplicate these out, a lot of them. And then I'm going to use my Align panel, which is tabbed behind Pathfinder, and select them all. And then line them up. I can use an Align objects in the first row. I can use this one here, vertical align center. And then maybe I want to make sure the spacing is even between them. So I could go to the distribute objects section and do horizontal distribute centers, so they all space out evenly. And then I can just group this. Command G is the shortcut, which is under Object, Group, remember? Command G is a good one to memorize. So now with one click, I selected the whole row, and then I can duplicate this whole row out a bunch of times till I get kind of a pattern going. And then I'm going to select all these rows, and then I want to distribute their spacing evenly. Actually, let me just line them up on their edge. So there's a button for that in the top in Align Objects, line horizontal line left, and then I can align the rows, distribute the vertical distribute center, so they're all nice and even. And then maybe I'll put a background color behind everything. You could switch into draw behind. Notice there are these modes down here. There's draw normal, where everything, where whatever you draw is going to go in front of everything, which is fine. So I could take a color, let me choose, or take my rectangle tool and choose a color, maybe a color from my brand colors, and then draw out. Right now I'm on draw normal. Oh, and it's taking on the stroke. Draw normal, maybe I don't want that stroke, so I can click the stroke to the front and click none. So that is drawing normal. Everything that whatever you draw next is going to go on top of everything you previously drew. And that's fine, because you can always send that to the back. Right click, arrange, send to back. But if you want to do it all in one step, you can switch into draw behind if you like. There's a draw behind button, and then whatever you draw next will go underneath everything. So I can then take my rectangle tool and draw behind right away. But make sure you switch back to draw normal, because you will start drawing things behind other things, and that will drive you crazy. So I'm going to go back to draw normal, and then things will be normal again. Okay, so the reason why I made this pattern is because I wanted to show you what you could use the crop button for in Pathfinder. So in going back to Pathfinder, there's this button called the crop button, and that's good if you have a shape and you want to cut a pattern out into that shape. So let's see, I've got a flower shape here. Let me just duplicate it, and maybe I want to make it bigger to have more pattern showing in it. Maybe I'll just change the color so you can see the edges better. And I don't want it to hang outside of the pattern. Okay, so something like that. Okay, so I'm going to select all of this artwork now. In order for Pathfinder to work, you've got to select all the graphics that you want to interact together. So I'm going to drag with my selection tool. I'm going to drag a marquee over all the artwork so it's all selected. And then I can click on the crop button. Oh wait, did I make a duplicate of this flower? I don't want to, yeah, I did. I don't want to just make changes to things before I have backups. Okay, so everything's selected, and I'm going to just click crop. Let's see what happens. Crop. Okay, so that happened. So it makes a, yeah, so it reshapes the pattern into, into whatever shape you put on the top. But there was an issue. Normally it actually deletes. Sometimes it actually deletes strokes. In this case, it's just having issues with the strokes, because strokes can kind of have a mind of their own. I think I might get better results if I were to outline my strokes into filled shapes rather than being strokes. So the stroke is that polka dotted outline. That's what I'm referring to as the stroke. I'm going to undo that. Command Z. I'm on a Mac, so Command Z. Control Z on Windows. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what happens when you outline strokes. So here, I'll just ungroup, object, ungroup, to just show you on one right now. Okay, so this circle is just, it's a fill, it has a fill, you can see at the bottom of the toolbar, it has a fill that's blue, and it has a stroke that's this dotted line, this dotted outline, that's this magenta color. If I want to turn those dots into actual filled shapes, I can do that by selecting the object and then going to Object, hovering over Path, and choosing Outline Stroke. And sometimes you just get better results if your stroke is turned into shape. So now when I use my direct selection tool and I select inside of the circle, they're actual shapes now that are filled. It's no longer a stroked outline. It's something, they're now shapes. So I could even select select this and move it around and play with these as a separate kind of thing, separate ring, and do different things with this and reshape them in different ways. But maybe the reason that I want to do this though is mainly so that I get better results with cropping. So I'm going to try selecting all of these and then doing the same process, Object, Path, Outline, Stroke. And that should ensure that now when I go back and I crop, I shouldn't have that kind of stuff around the edges. Oops, let me just make this a little bigger.
Navi,
Uh-huh.
may I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
So in Photoshop, it creates layers. In Illustrator, there's no layers?
There are plenty of layers. Right now if we look at the layers panel, I have everything on one layer. There's not really a need to make separate layers until you are finding that you've got artwork stacked on top of artwork and you're having difficulty adjusting or working with certain artwork because other artwork's getting in the way. That's when you start making separate layers. But everything is a sub-layer within this one layer, which is in a stacking order. So essentially these are all sub-layers within the layer, and there's not much need to have separate layers in something like logo brainstorming.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. With Photoshop, it is really important to be aware of what's on what layer at any given time. In Illustrator, it's more forgiving. You don't have to worry so much about what layer you're on at any given time. Mm-hmm. Okay, so
Navi, I'm sorry. Why can't I find the stroke? My stroke panel doesn't look like yours.
your stroke panel. Okay, so you might have your options hidden. So does your stroke panel look like this?
Yes.
Yeah, then you go to your little options flyout, show options, and you've got everything. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to select everything here and try crop again. Crop. And everything is much cleaner now because I outlined the strokes. Strokes can have a mind of their own when they're strokes, but when they're just outlined shapes, they're more contained. So everything is nice and neat. Much neater.
And to get there, you go to Object or?
To outline your strokes, yeah, you go to, see, I'll do it on this one with the big clunky stuff. So then you just select your artwork that has a stroke on it. See how it shows a fill and a stroke? You know that's to verify that this artwork has a stroke on it and I want to outline it into filled shapes. So then you go to Object, Path, Outline, Stroke. And then these little circles, they become, instead of being a stroke that came out of a dashed line originally, now these are their own little shapes that can be moved around. They're just a grouping of shapes now that are filled shapes. Then you can ungroup those shapes if you want. Object, let's see, Can I ungroup these? Let's see, select, let's try this. So I'm selecting with my selection tool, then go to object and ungroup. And then these are still grouped here. Let's see what happens if I go to object. Oh, I can't ungroup these. That's interesting. So I guess I have to, let's see what these are. So if we go into layers, you can tell what's selected in your layers if you open up the layer, and then you see, if we scroll down, we'll find what's selected. There it is, because it has a little box next to it and a doubled circle. That means it's targeted. And that's telling me that that's a compound path. So the only way I can break this apart is if I release the compound path, which is another kind of species in vector graphics. If you go under object, you can find where compound path is, and then I can release that. And now it's separate circles. So these weren't actually a group, they were actually a compound path. So now I can move the circles around and play with those. So that's kind of interesting. Okay, we got something in chat, but enough dissecting and scientific stuff. Let's get to the art. So yeah, I'm gonna be working with I got a message in chat. I'm gonna be working with our IT. I'm sorry that about the confusion with not having access to Adobe. I haven't heard back from our IT, so I'm gonna be working with them. Hopefully we'll have some time in the break. So let me keep going so we can have time, and I can have time to talk with our IT and then get back to you about that. About what's going on.
You did that object path and to make it into a outlining the strokes, and then in the Pathfinder you went to the cropping. Is that what you used? Cropping?
Yeah, cropping did this to make use a shape to cut out a pattern. So and you can duplicate and do something different. Let's see what's next here. After crop is outline. So if you wanted to turn any artwork into just line art, you can select your artwork and you can try choosing outline, and it's a quick way to convert everything just to strokes. So everything's just strokes, and then you can use your let's see, you can go into properties or your stroke panel and increase the stroke weight, because there's no stroke weight here, stroke weight there. And then see everywhere there was an intersection or overlap, the stroke has kind of broken into its own little piece that can be colored differently when you use the outline function in Pathfinder. And then
what commands did you use to duplicate?
To duplicate, you can select your artwork and then you hover over it until you get this little bounding box move tool icon arrow, and then you option drag out a duplicate.
Option drag, okay.
If you are, and you make sure you release your mouse and then release the option key. And if you're on Windows, you use Alt. Alt is the same as option. If you have strokes though, you have to be right on top of a stroke in order to duplicate. You can't be just over nilly-willy or whatever it's called, nilly-nilly in the empty area. You have to be on top of actual art, actual strokes, and then you can also duplicate out strokes. I'm going to delete that though. So this is artwork that's this is artwork that's made out of just line, just strokes. And you see question marks on the stroke. Does anyone know why you see question marks on the stroke when I have this artwork selected?
I don't know why. I'm curious about that. I've been meaning to ask and I forgot.
Yeah, it's because I've got more than one color selected at one time, so it can't just display rainbow right there, so it puts question marks. So if I use my direct selection tool though, I can select just one piece at a time, and then see I selected just the yellow, and then it'll have showed the yellow on the stroke.
I see.
But with your selection tool, the black arrow, and when you click on a group of objects, then you'll see question marks if you have more than one color selected. Okay, so all right, so we've been working with shapes a lot. Let's get into text, because text is another important part of creating a brand. Creating not only you can intertwine your business name with your logo. You could intertwine just letters as an abbreviation with your logo, and also just, if you wanted to have your logo as a standalone image, you still there's a lot of thought and creativity that should go into the creation of the title, the name of your business. So we're gonna get into type now. So here's the type tool, and I'm on.
Abby?
Oh, is this Lance there?
Yeah.
Hey,
Can you
Lance.
check me in?
Yeah, thanks for coming, Lance. Lance, just if you could just sign in the chat, then that'll be a reminder for me at the end of class. I can check you in, because I might have gotten, I probably got timed out of the attendance now.
All right, thank you.
Sorry?
May I see, is today's session, is it being recorded?
Yes.
Okay.
So just for everyone to know, if you come in after I take roll, it's really helpful if you just check in by putting your name in chat, and let me know too, because I might not find it. If people like to use chat to actually chat, then I might not notice your check-in. So it's good that, Lance, that you let me know you're here. Thank you.
Abby, there's a lab too, right?
Yeah, so my goal is that we get free time today for you to work independently, and you can ask me for help during that time. So I want to get as much covered now, so we can make sure that we have some free time for the after lunch time.
Do I have to check in for the lab too?
No, we just do one check-in at the beginning.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so I'm just kind of making some space here. Okay, so text. So I'm on the advanced toolbar. When you're on the advanced toolbar, you have all the type tools at your fingertips. If you want to make sure you're on advanced toolbar, you go to Window, hover over Toolbars, and check Advanced. And then when you click and hold on the type tool, you'll have all the tools available. But I'm going to start with the standard type tool on top. That's just a horizontal type tool. And to use that, if you just want to do like the name of the business or a single letter, you just click. If you're doing a whole column of text in for like a magazine article, you click and drag, and it puts in a whole column, and it just fills the space with placeholder text. That's traditionally used in the graphic design world. It's called lorem ipsum. It's a whole thesis that's all in Latin. I'm not sure why they use that, but that's traditionally.
It's not in real Latin. It's actually fake Latin. Sorry.
Really? Because I thought
complete gibberish.
one of my students read about it and said it's actually telling something real. About,
is it really?
Yeah, because the words, it's about pain. There's like the word dolores in there, and that's.
Some words are actual words, but it's mostly placeholder text, and it doesn't really have meaningful content.
Well, it's
derived
placeholder.
from Cicero, but otherwise.
What is it? Say that again.
It's derived from Cicero, but otherwise it's just gibberish.
Well, it's gibberish to us because we don't know Latin and we don't use it for the purpose of understanding the meaning, and it is just used for placeholder for graphic designers for the most part. Maybe some people who study Latin get something more out of it, but generally graphic designers don't. So we just use it when we're waiting for the writer to get the writing ready for, and we want to start designing what the text is going to look like and putting it down in the layouts. But for designing your brand, you don't need to click and drag to drag out area type like I just did. You just click. So I'm going to delete this area type, I'm going to take the type tool and just click. And it just puts in one line there that's highlighted that we can type over. As soon as I took the type tool and I clicked, in the character panel, I have my character controls, or my character panel pops up in the properties for easy access. I can increase the size of the type by clicking the up arrow here on the font size, or I can click the drop down here and choose a larger size. Or I can switch to my selection tool and I can scale, because I created this type by just clicking, I can scale it with my selection tool. And you can scale proportionally by holding shift and dragging, and that will give you even more font sizes by just using your eye, your judgment, scaling manually. It's giving me different font sizes there. If I drag up without holding shift, I can change the vertical or horizontal scale of the text. And if I want to see all my character controls, I can click on the dot here and pop up the entire character panel. And you see that when I did that, when I adjusted without holding shift, I distorted the horizontal scale. So if I want to go back to the same aspect ratio, I could switch that back to 100%. So now my vertical scale and my horizontal scale are both at 100%, and I can scale normally like that. So I want to think of a business name for myself. Let's see. I guess I haven't come up with Sun World yet. Let's try Sun World Graphics. So what I just did just now was I double clicked on I was on my selection tool and I double clicked on my text box, and now it took me into my type tool again, and then I could highlight characters by clicking and dragging through them to control them, or I can double click to select an entire word, one word at a time, or triple click to select a whole line at a time. And then now that it's all highlighted, I can retype whatever I want, like Sun World Graphics or something. I'm just coming up with a random name for my my imaginary business. Okay, I'm going back to the selection tool here. And so because this is point type, because I just clicked to type it out, it's point type. But if I change my mind and I want it to be area type, which is what I created when I clicked and dragged out a column of text, I could still convert this to an area type text box at any time by double clicking on this little circle that's sticking out. And why would I want it to be area type? If I wanted it to wrap to the text box as opposed to scaling to the text box. So now it's area type. So now as I drag, you see that I have this overset box. I can scale this down and see how it's wrapping. So when not all the text fits, you'll see a little overset box here. It's like a little, looks like it has a plus on it, and it's a little red box. You could either click on that and it'll thread your text on your cursor. Now I have a loaded cursor, and then if I click somewhere else, it will spill the overflow into a separate text box. But I don't. Yes.
I'm sorry. This gets me confused sometimes. So it's not a matter of one being better to use than another. It's just a matter of wrapping, and you use the area type one when you want to wrap around
Yeah.
an
And
object. And you just click and point when you want it just to be regular, I guess regular type.
yeah, well, when you generally, it's not a matter of what's better, it's a matter of what's appropriate in different situations. So if if you're just designing the name of your business, you probably just want point type. If you're doing like a little paragraph of text, you probably want area type, because then you can kind of wrap the paragraph to the shape of or to the size of the text box, or it all depends. You might, in this class, we probably don't need area type. So I can just select this box. These are threaded text boxes now. So they're connected. So one is overflowing into the next. I'm just going to select this box and delete it. And now I have overset type again, and I can just scale this down like that. And this is area type. It's actually, I wasn't really scaling, I was just stretching to hide or reveal the whole business name here. But no, I don't really want this to be area type, so I can just double click back on this little circle, and now it's back to being point type. But I have the second word on another line now. So I can just take my type tool, click here inside, and if I want it to be all on one line, delete. And then now it's point type again, so I can scale it, holding shift, scale. So now it's not wrapping, it's scaling. And if I do want this to be on the next line, if I'm in point type, I can't just wrap to the box. I have to actually press return, or press or shift return if I want it to be a soft return. Soft returns or hard returns. So it's a good idea to show your hidden characters when you're designing with type. So I'm going to go to type, and I'm going to go to so under the type drop down, I'm going to go to show hidden characters. And if you like to toggle between those a lot, there's a keyboard shortcut you can memorize. And it looks like it's Option Command I to show hidden characters on a Mac, or it would be Alt Control I on Windows. Okay, so hidden characters will just show you wherever you made a space, you'll see dots. So that's good if so you don't actually accidentally make too many spaces when you don't need to. And then when I press return, it'll give me this symbol to indicate this is a hard return. So it separates these as two separate paragraphs when you use a hard return. And if you use a soft return with a shift return, it's this symbol here showing that this is a soft return. This is telling Illustrator this is all the same paragraph. So you can't control graphics as its own paragraph using the paragraph the controls that come along with the paragraph panel. Like for example, I can click this ... and with the paragraph panel you can use the space before and the space after, but we don't really need to go into that detail for this class. If you want to control spacing between lines within the same paragraph, you can use the leading control, which is part of the character panel. The leading is the spacing from baseline to baseline. So we can adjust that spacing here, clicking up and down arrows here. But let's get into fun stuff. Let's choose some fonts. So I've got this selected. I'm gonna click from my character panel in properties. I'm gonna click on the drop down, and I can hover over all different kinds of fonts that I have here and see a live live display. gives me an idea very quickly of what I want. So let's say I like Atlas. And and then in Atlas you have different styles, italic, bold. I like fonts that have different styles to work with. That's handy when you're developing your brand, to have different options of different styles that go well together. So let's say I choose bold, and in the paragraph panel down here I could change the alignment to center, or I could have them left align like it was, or right alignment. Oops. Right align. But maybe center is best. And what I like to do is I like to play around with another tool that you'll find in the toolbar, only with the advanced tools. If you click and hold, you can go all the way down to the touch type tool, which is a lot of fun. It does exactly what it says it does. It lets you, it's really hands-on, really tactile. It gives you that experience of just going in there instead of using the character panel with these up and down arrows or drop down menus that are kind of clunky to work with. You have a lot more control with the touch type tool. So with the touch type tool, you go right into the text, click on individual characters, and you can scale them up larger by hovering over. So you have a controller around this individual character, and you can drag on the circle here like that to scale it up. Or so this circle's scaling the letter proportionally. This circle here I can move to, or I can move the letter up or down, and this is changing the baseline shift. The baseline again is it's the invisible line that the characters sit on, but you can shift that, make a drop cap and drag the type down to make it more interesting. You can also click on individual characters and move them, scoot them closer together. That's called changing the kerning, when you change the spacing between two individual characters at a time. You can do something fun and make like a whimsical feel where you have certain characters moving up or down. You can rotate. There's a little rotational option up here. Little rotational control you can drag for fun. Fun in the sun. So you can rotate the characters and play with the kind of the spacing in between there. And if you want things to match, then that's when you need to consult the character panel, which you could also bring up so you can have the whole floating character panel under Window, under Type, and choose Character, or Command T or Control T on Windows. We'll bring up the character panel, and to get all the options, again, there's a little flyout menu, Show Options, so you can see all the options on the character panel. And
what'd you do? Hold on. Go back.
so that's the little options. You can hide the options or show the options. And the character panel was, you can use Command T to bring it up, or Control T on Windows, or go to Window, Type, and bring it up there so it floats. Because I was looking at the compact view within properties to keep my workspace cleaner, but sometimes you just want to have the whole thing out floating, easy to access. And then if I wanted, see, I changed the, what did I change? When you change the size of the letters using the touch type tool, you're actually not changing the font size, you're actually changing the vertical scale and the horizontal scale. So I am about 149 on these, so I'll just make it 149. 149, or I could do 150. I think 149 is good. And then I could select this one with my touch type tool and then put the same numbers in there again. 149. 149, so they match. So you can use the touch type tool to kind of get an idea visually of what you want, and then and do things really hands-on. And then if you want things to match, then you can go in and make those changes. And this is really gonna give your name, your business name, it's a unique look in how you are able to make all of these different adjustments. Sun World Graphics, so it's already looking kind of more interesting. So that's what you might do when you are designing the name of your business. But I'm gonna take my regular type tool and maybe create an abbreviated version. So maybe I'll just click and type an S, and then I'll go to my selection tool and to confirm that, and then I'll go back to my type tool and click and make a W. And then I can scale these. Let me just select both of them and scale them up. Maybe I'll do a different font. You can also find more, which is fun. If you click on find more, the Creative Cloud has additional options where you can download additional fonts. So clicking on the drop down here and then find more. There's a lot more to choose from in the find more section. And of course you could go on various websites and download additional fonts. Oh, that's kind of fun. Maybe this one. So if I want this one, this is Gilbert Bold, I can click this activate button that looks like a cloud with a downward arrow. Activate this font. Okay. So now if I go back to fonts, I should be able to just type in Gilbert Bold, and I have it now in my main fonts. And then I can try different ways of combining these to create some kind of image, some kind of new image with these. Maybe I play with the size of the S, larger. I don't know. Maybe this one might look good overlapping in some way. Maybe the W will be a little bigger. But this kind of looks scary. But what I could also do is I could outline these, but I'm going to duplicate them so that I have a backup of this text as a font first, and then I can outline the text into shapes, because right now the text is just displaying as a font. And especially for a business name or a logo, you want to have even more rights to your work and make it more original. So one way of doing that is to actually outline the text itself into shapes that you can further manipulate if you want. Ooh, I kind of like how that's coming together. So maybe whenever you see something that you like coming together, I would make a backup. So I'll duplicate that out. Put that over here, group it, Command G, so that sticks together that way. And then over here, I want to select these, and I think I'm going to turn off show hidden characters. What was Command Option I, so those don't distract us. So now I want to outline this into shape so that I can further manipulate it and alter it and make it more my own. So I can go to, while the type is selected, I can go to type and choose create outlines. It's very much like outlining a stroke. It's just turning these into shapes. And then if I wanted to combine these into one shape, what do I use? A simple way to do it is Pathfinder Unite, right? Unite just combines it all, connects it all into one shape. That's very clean. So I could do it that way, or let me undo that and duplicate this. Show you another way to do it.
So you put it, you put them together, the S and the W together, so that you can manipulate the little points if you wanted to.
Yeah, so you could do that. You can also use Pathfinder because you couldn't use Pathfinder with a font. So if I wanted to combine these to be all one shape, I could select Unite. So now this is all one shape, nice and clean. This, I duplicated it so that I could do different things though. Yeah, and so another purpose of outlining is so that you could go in and alter it yourself. So then you're no longer really using the font. You're creating your own shapes,
Right.
your own type. It's your own. You can't. So it makes it more original. So you can take your direct selection tool, for example, and you can click on a point and move it. If I didn't like that angling on the end of the S, I could straighten that out and adjust the curve by dragging on the handle, and there, just like little alterations go a long way to make things your own. Maybe make that a little wider, and that's a nice easy font to work with. I can show you some tricks on other fonts that are a little more challenging. So maybe I try something else with this one. Let's see if I move this over like that, and I move this down like that. And drag on that handle, straighten this out so it matches. And then you can also, okay, so there's another tool that lets you combine more manually. Like, okay, so with Pathfinder, it's great because you can select your objects that you want to combine together into one shape, and with one click, it's all combined. But there's another option. It works well if you have different colors. So let's say this was a different color, and this was a different color here, and maybe we had the S in the front. Command Shift right bracket brings it to the front, and then if I wanted to combine these more manually, let me just duplicate this. Option drag out a duplicate. So I have different versions. It's always good to just keep duplicating things as much as possible so you can have a lot of different versions so you really get to the best, the cream of the crop. But I want to show you, there's a tool here. It's hiding under the width tool. Remember the width tool? I showed you yesterday in the second half of the class. But under the width tool is the shape builder tool, which you can use on selected objects that you want to combine. So I select both of my objects with my selection tool, and then I go to my shape builder, and then I can hover over areas and drag one into the next, and see how it's giving the same color to that section there. So that's a way of combining things more manually. If you didn't want to combine everything together, maybe I just wanted this part to come together. That's kind of cool. I like that for a logo. And then now this is, then it becomes a group as soon as you start using Shape Builder. So I'll go with that. But then I want to do something different, even different still.
Can I ask you a question?
Uh-huh. Oops.
When you use the shape builder tool like that, did you just only have that one opportunity to kind of click and drag and make that one section, unite that one section purple and blue together? Or could you go over to the U and use the shape builder tool over there too?
I could. I'm glad you asked that question. So I just undid some things. And also I'm noticing that the color of my layer is blue, so it's hard to see the paths because the paths are also blue. So you can always change the color of your layer. See, my layer is blue. By double clicking on from the layers panel, you can double click on the layer and choose a different color that's easier to see. Like, let's try green. There, now you can see the paths, the shapes. And so I separated these again. I didn't separate them completely, but you wanted to see kind of something different. Like if I, well, let me do what I did already again, and then you can give me some ideas on a different way to do it. So I've selected everything, and then you take Shape Builder, and then parts that you want to combine, you hover over one section, and then you drag into another. And oh, that one, everything became white, because I had white on my fill. But let's see if I go from the blue over. Nope, it's staying white. Okay, let's click on the blue and see if just a click on it turned it to blue. That's interesting. And then I can go down like that. So that's what I did before, right? Is that what I did? Yeah.
I think so.
Okay, so I'm gonna just, oh, they're separate now. That's interesting. Okay, I'm always discovering new things as I go too. I'm gonna hit Command G and group that now. And then do that again a different way. So I'm going to duplicate this out, and then these are all both selected, and that's what you have to start with is objects, multiple objects overlapping and selected when you use Pathfinder or when you use something like Shape Builder. And then
it's a group right now. Is it a group, the S and the U? You duplicated it out?
I duplicated it, but these are separate.
Separate, okay.
But I'm selecting them together, and then I can take Shape Builder, and then the question was, can I do it in a different way, or?
Correct.
Okay, so if, like, let's say I started here and I went like that, and it turned it blue. Wait, let me undo that. Okay, so it turned it blue because blue was on my fill. So it's, I guess, whatever's on your fill to start with. Okay, so if I do that, and then you said, do you want to see if I had the opportunity to drag from over here in maybe, or from up here down, to see what would happen differently?
Are you limited to working with blue and purple?
I think I could switch to another color, but since everything's selected, I need to deselect first. So I deselect, and then let's try this gold color and see what happens. So I deselected everything, and then I click the gold color, and then I can take Shape Builder, and then, oh, I have to select everything again, and then go to Shape Builder, and it remembered the gold was what I had selected last. So now when I draw, it's turning things gold.
Okay.
And I could just keep going, and now I just turned that all gold.
Uh-huh.
And I could just combine things all together like that.
Uh-huh.
Or let's see, if I deselect and I go to a different color, and then I go back to, I select everything again, and then I go back to Shape Builder, and then I draw, well, it's all connected, so it's just going to change. No? Oh, it's remembering the gold. Okay. Well, I guess it's done now. So it's stuck like that, all connected now. But you could use it to connect just sections at a time. So that's why there's the Shape Builder tool to do certain sections together at a time. But one thing that's really cool is the opposite of, another thing that's really cool, I should say, is the opposite of Shape Builder. Is a tool that's hiding underneath Shape Builder. If you go underneath the Shape Builder tool, a tool that does the opposite of Shape Builder. So Shape Builder is good for combining overlapping areas into one shape, whereas there's a tool under that called Live Paint Bucket, which is good for separating and breaking up overlapping areas into separate shapes that you can control the colors of separately. So I'm going to switch to Live Paint Bucket now, and let's duplicate this out. And so that Live Paint is great for creating these little separate areas of color. So with the Live Paint tool, just like Shape Builder and just like Pathfinder, you have to select all of your overlapping shapes together. Oops. I don't want to accidentally select something that I don't want in this. Select my overlapping shapes. They're all selected because I use the selection tool to drag a marquee around all of them. Around the two, actually, just 2 letters are selected. And then I'm going to go to my Live Paint Bucket. And Live Paint Bucket will work with your swatches, so you can click on any swatch that you want to start with, and then I can use my arrow keys to cycle through swatches. So now it's just like moving through. As I move, I can go up or down, side to side, and I'm just cycling through, choosing different colors here using my arrow keys. So now I got this orange, and then on my cursor I see 3 color choices at any given time, which is convenient because I can see what's next to that color that I have selected. And then I can just click and create different colors in the overlapping areas.
Oh, that's kind of what I was getting at. I guess the Live Paint Bucket versus the whatever the other tool was that we just did.
Yeah, but you want to kind of stick to your brand colors so that things don't get too wild and crazy. And one,
Can you use any of those 3 colors that you have on the paint bucket, the blue, purple, or yellow? Can you scroll and like use that as a, to change and paint right away? You know what I mean?
with
Like,
the arrow key.
Yeah. What are you using? You're using the arrow key to scroll through?
Yeah, I'm just using the arrow keys to tap through, and it's going through all my swatches. If you want to start selecting your brand colors, maybe with a little bit more design wisdom or aesthetic what am I looking for, like if you want to make sure that you're choosing colors that really have good harmony together, one handy panel that's built into Illustrator is the color guide, which is helpful. You can go to Window and bring up the color guide, and that's usually tabbed with the color panel. There's the color guide, and that's helpful because if you say, well, I like this green color here, but I'm not sure what's gonna look good with it. The color guide has a lot of different options for that. So let's say I choose this green color here. selected that green color, and I can make sure it's set as a base color in the color guide by clicking on it here, which I believe it's already got set as the base color. And then I can click this drop down here and see all different tried and true color harmonies or color schemes that go along with that color. There's complementary color schemes. There's, analogous, where you have similar colors that go well together, and triads, where you have colors that are more contrasty that go well together, and tetrads, where you have 4 different colors that go well together. So it's just a good starting point to selecting colors and creating colors to go along with your brand. So so I can use the color guide and add more colors to my brand colors, and drag in some more that I think look good together. I'm just dragging and dropping. You can get some with the color guide. It will give you some choices of tints and tones and shades as well.
Now, you were using the live paint bucket tool? Because there's the live paint selection tool I see as well.
Yes, I was using the live paint bucket tool, which I'll get to the live paint selection tool in just a second. So I'm just adding some more colors there to work with that could be good to go along with my brand, especially if I want my theme to look kind of environmentally friendly. I could choose some of these greens here and health conscious. And then I go back with my selection tool and select this, and this has become a live paint group because I started using live paint bucket. So you see that the handles on the bounding box look a little different than your normal group of artwork. They have these little snowflakes in them, indicating that this is in live paint mode right now. So I can just continue with my live paint bucket and choose different colors that might go well together. And let's see, let's try this darker green here to do some kind of interesting look. Or maybe I like the darker color. Maybe that's too much color going on. So you can play around with that, and maybe, or I could even lighten this color up and add a color to my color group that I chose myself, and try that color there. And then, and so I've got this live paint group, and then you asked about the live paint selection tool. So you can select that. And with the live paint selection tool, it's good if you just want to select an area and then change the color that way. Or, but I like to use it especially for selecting strokes. So there are no strokes on this artwork yet, but if with the live paint selection tool, which is under the live paint bucket, I can select, if I go right to the edge, I can select just the where the stroke would be, and then I could put a color as a stroke, and it's just gonna meet until it connects with another shape. So it's just it lets you select these partial areas of outline, and then you can change the colors, and you can also change the stroke weights too. You can select with the live paint selection tool, you can go select that stroke, and then I can go into my stroke panel options, or my stroke options in properties, and I can thicken a stroke. That's way too thick. Or thin it out. Change the stroke weights. And if you change your mind about stroke and you don't want stroke, you can select the stroke again, and you can just click none in swatches, and that removes it. So once you're done with your breaking things up into little sections, you can select your live paint group, and then you can just turn it into a normal group of artwork, because in layers it'll be listed as a live paint group, just like that, just showing the original 2 letters. But then if you want to break it into to function kind of normally, you can click the expand button from quick actions, or you can go to object, expand, or any place that says expand, or you could go to live paint and expand there. And now it's broken up into a bunch of separate little shapes. Now it's a group of all these little pieces are broken into individual shapes, which you can then pick apart if you want with your direct selection tool or your group selection tool, like we did when we used divide in Pathfinder. And you can like move things around and continue to alter the work that way, or not, just leave it as a group.
Once you settle on something, you can just set it as a group. You don't need to expand it if you don't want to.
Yeah, you could leave it as a paint group, but you might have, if you wanted to alter it further, you might have some issues. So you might, at some point, you might want to just make it into expand it into just a normal group of shapes.
Just going Command G to make it a normal group.
No, expand will turn it normal. See how it looks normal now? The bounding box, the handles are just regular squares. It's no longer a paint group. But if you want to work with it as a paint group again, you can always, while it's selected, you can always go back to live paint bucket and choose a color and click, and then start putting things together again, or breaking things apart.
So that expand option was under object, is that correct? Okay.
It was the easiest way is to just get it from quick actions here in properties.
Okay.
And now it's a live paint group again. And I wonder, now I have these all the same color, maybe I want to combine these shapes all into one. So that's a job for Shape Builder. So, but I can't use Shape Builder when I'm working on a live paint group. So that's a reason to expand it. And then I could use Shape Builder to combine all these shapes. Because you want to kind of have a clean logo. You don't want to have things broken up into shapes if you don't want them to be separate. There's no reason for all these shapes that are the same color to be separate. Weird stuff could happen in printing later if you have separate pieces that you don't intend to be separate. So we can drag through and just simplify and clean that up with Shape Builder. So that's how you might use live paint to break shapes up, and then use Shape Builder to simplify and piece them back together. I just remembered, I had yesterday someone, was it Raymond? Who was it? Who asked about if you have artwork that's drawn and you want to scan it, can you convert it to vectors? Who asked that question?
Asked if you have an existing file, if you could convert it. And I figured that out last night.
Oh, cool. So you used Image Trace?
Yeah.
Very good. Is that your own drawing or your own artwork? Or?
Yes.
Cool.
I actually made the logo and I turned it into.
Oh, excellent. We'll have to share that maybe Thursday. So, yeah, that could be helpful for everyone. So, we'll look at what Raymond's done on Thursday. I think maybe this will be a good time to show you an example of how that works. How you could start with something that's pixel-based art and turn it into vectors. So I want to do that with if you guys want to follow along, you can go on Google and you can find an image of a simple image of a map. I'm seeing a question here coming in. Is there a book that has the definition and details on how to use these programs, or are we supposed to memorize all this from your lecture? You can barely see the fonts. Sorry about that. Well, having the videos should be helpful. I'm also I'm going to be giving you guys some handouts that could be helpful, that are like, what would come from a book. But definitely, you can always look up books on Adobe if you want to use a book as a reference. Like any of the classroom in a books could be helpful. But this is really, I'm probably going into way too much detail. I'm trying to contain myself, but when I get going, I get going. So I know it's a lot. So what I'd like you guys to kind of do is think about your own brand and use this as sort of a buffet. Like, you don't have to know all of this. Just start creating, imagining your own vision for your own brand, and think, okay, well, which part of what she's telling me could help me to design this? Or maybe I'd show something that inspires you to go in a certain direction, and you're like, oh, I like how that worked. So you could, I like how that live paint works, so maybe I'll try to make something with that. Or I liked how you could make interesting shapes with some of the buttons on Pathfinder, so you might try that. Or you might say, oh, I like how I want to do something with a flower, so I'm going to use the pucker and bloat effect and make a flower for part of my logo. So you can use, of course you can use YouTube. Yeah, for sure. You can always look up anything that I'm talking about if you want additional resources. Yeah, for sure. But you want to be careful about using a tutorial, because you don't want to end up with a logo that looks just like someone else's, because that would be defeating the purpose of originality. But if you use it just like what I've been showing for getting inspired or learnings how to use skills, that could be helpful. Maybe one more thing that I wanted to show you before I move on to image tracing is if you are using a font that's a little bit different. So let's say I'm gonna do another S and another W, and select these, and then I'll choose. So what was it? Was it the names of the fonts you couldn't see? Okay, so let's say I choose this minion variable concept. So this is a font that's a serif font. It has the little details, the little feet. Gives it a little more of a the characters have a little more distinguishable characteristics there. Oh, and there's also another question about from Maria about buying a laptop. We can talk more about that when we have free time. No, the things in the gray boxes. No, just the things in the gray boxes. What gray boxes? Let's see. So you're talking about in here? Well, right now I'm zooming in on it. Unfortunately, funny enough, in Zoom you can't see me zoom in on things, but if you go back and watch the video will have you'll be able to see me zoom in on panels so that you can see up close the icons and what the panels look like. Is that what you're talking about? Okay. Okay, so with a font like this, if I wanted to work with that as a shape, to work with these as shapes, select these, and then I go to type, and I go to, what do I go to? Help me out here. To turn this into shapes, create outlines, right?
Online.
Yes.
Tab.
Now, yes. Now, you might have a font that has a lot of points on around the edges, and you might find it easier to alter the shaping of the text if you wanted to make it your own if you have less points. So one tool that's helpful when you are trying to customize a font to make it your own is a tool that's hiding under the shaper tool, which the shaper tool is underneath the rectangle tool. With the shape tools that I've been using are under the rectangle tool, but just under that is the shaper tool, which I haven't really introduced you to yet. I don't really like the shaper tool very much. It's a new tool that I don't find that useful because of all the other tools that we have that are pretty straightforward. But I could show you the shaper tool. But under the shaper tool is the smooth tool, which I do happen to like a lot, because if I use my direct selection tool and select by clicking in the middle of a letter, if I want to minimize the number of points on a letter, I can use the smooth tool and just draw along the edge, and it'll just let me alter the shape at times, or it will, it smooths out, and sometimes it will reduce the number of points so you have less, and it's a quick way to start altering the shaping of the letters so that they start to have a different personality. So now I kind of just smoothed that letter out, gave it kind of a different shape, and then
So
smooth
it's
tool.
technically not minion variable concept anymore.
Right. So it's just kind of giving it a different character. Yeah. So, and the idea, sometimes the smooth tool will add more points, which is not what I wanted to do. I wanted it to smooth things out and have less points to deal with, because when you're going in and altering the shape, you'll find it a lot easier to, if you're using your direct selection tool and you're clicking on a point to select it and you're moving it around, it's going to be easier with less points, because if you got too many points there, then it's a headache to move things around, to manipulate things. So then you go to your smooth tool, just try to draw along the edge. It's not behaving for me right now. Supposed to kind of smooth things out and make less points. But if that doesn't work, there's always the pen tool. The pen tool is what gives you the most power and control. And this tool, the pen tool, there is a learning curve, and it does take a lot of practice, but you can start dabbling with it to get to do some really effective, helpful techniques, like for example, I can take the pen tool, and if I've got just too many points, I can hover over a point, and hey, what symbol do you see? Can you guys see it, or is it too small? The minus pops up, means that you can hover over a point and remove points that you have too many of. And then it's a lot easier to take your direct selection tool and move points around to change the personality of your type. Drag on the handles to adjust the curves. I could really tweak this text and make it my own, give it my own shape. And this is a curve. And if I change my mind and I say, well, I don't want this to be a curve, I want it to be a corner. Well, I could take a tool that goes along with the pen tool. It's underneath the pen tool. and that's the anchor point tool. It's a very useful tool that comes along with the pen tool. And that tool, it looks like an upside down V, and it's used to convert points along curves to points on corners. So you can do that by just clicking to remove the curve, which will remove the handles. So now it's a nice sharp corner. If I want to go back to a curve, I can click and drag, not this way because that's a tangle. I can click and drag into the point, and now I have a curve again. So I can click to remove the curve, which removes the handles, click and drag to bring the handles back, which adds the curve, and then I can use my direct selection tool to drag on the handles to change the curve. It kind of just wobbles back and forth, and the handles go back and forth like a seesaw, teeter-totter at this point. Or I could move the point around to change the shape. But if I wanted, let's say I wanted curves that meet at a corner, that would be a job for dun da da da. Whoops, I got out of Illustrator. Dun da da da. Anchor point tool. Also, anchor point tool not only you can use anchor point tool not only to click to remove the curve or click drag to bring the curve back, but you can also use the anchor point tool, the upside down V tool, to drag on a handle, which will split the smooth continuous Bezier curve, is the technical name for it. It will split it into two curves that meet at a corner by dragging on a handle. Now it's split it. So now I can go back to the direct selection tool and drag on this handle and select the point so I can see the other handle, and I can drag on the handles independently, and that's how you create shapes that look like waves or golden arches, like a wave or a curl kind of shape.
So before it was split, you would just control the one curve.
Yeah, before it was split, it just kind of seesaws back and forth, and it's called a continuous smooth Bezier curve, like this one here. Just when you drag on the handles, the curve just wobbles back and forth. But when you split it, then you have these handles that control each side of the curves. The curves as separate curves on each side of the point.
You split it with the anchor point tool at the center at the curve point.
So you split it with the anchor point tool by dragging on a handle. I could do that to this point too. You just drag on a handle and it's split. And then you switch back to the direct selection tool. You can select your anchor point again, and then you can control each handle independently. Not like a teeter-totter anymore. So you can do some really interesting shaping. Like now I've got some interesting wave shapes going on here and this is all in my text. Pretty crazy there. Ooh, that's kind of cool. It looks like a bird on the end of it. Okay, so you can find information, some handouts. So it seems like it's a good time to get you guys going on your handouts. Those handouts you should have downloaded already. I believe that would be, you go into files and make sure that you've got everything that's in logo creation. Let's see, in logo creation, important Illustrator info. So for anyone who wants a book, important Illustrator info and keyboard shortcuts and about the convert anchor point tool, those are great resources to look at. So we go into that, because I already downloaded this, so I'm going to bring this up in my logo creation folder. I'm going to open up important Illustrator info. And then there's keyboard shortcuts too, which is helpful to speed up your workflow. and about the anchor point tool is here. So this is what I just went over with about the anchor point tool and what it's good for. Converting a curve or converting a corner into a curve by clicking and dragging into the point, and then clicking the point to remove the curve, remove the handles, you get back to a corner, and then using the convert anchor point tool to drag on a handle, then you can create you can split the curve so it's not a smooth continuous curve. It's it's two curves that are controlled separately by separate handles. And then if you want to try drawing with the pen tool, that's what really takes the practice. So drawing with the pen tool, you want to do some free form drawing, take that pen tool, and then you'll need to kind of understand the language of the pen tool, and that's in this important Illustrator info handout where you'll see here all about the pen tool and these little symbols and what they mean. When you're starting out drawing a brand new shape with the pen tool, you'll see this little sparkle. So that's what we see when we're drawing something separate. So I'll just show you how to do something like maybe a heart. So maybe I'll choose a heart color, maybe this color. So then I'll start with a click to start. When you start drawing, when you draw straight lines with the pen tool, you just click. So drawing a straight line here, I'll do a robot heart here. Straight lines, you just click. But when you want curves, you click and drag. If you want a corner, you could just click. Curve, you click and drag. Click and drag. And we can just close our shape there. And when we go all the way around to close the shape, we'll see a circle appear. And we close it. And then if I don't want a robot heart, that's a job for anchor point tool. I can go and click and drag into my points to convert them. Or another way to convert points. So this is a corner point and I want this to be a curve. Another way to convert a point is to select it with the direct selection tool, and you'll see in properties the convert buttons will appear, and you can convert to smooth to give that point a curve, or you can go back and convert it back to corner by clicking on these buttons. Another way to do it. And then you can just move the points around and make adjustments. So that's in a nutshell how to use the pen tool, but there's a lot more that goes into it that you learn in the full Illustrator class. Keyboard shortcuts, some of the for those of you who are on a Mac, these are the symbols that you'll see for the modifier keys. For a long time it was just difficult for me to keep those symbols straight, what they were, especially between the option key. I was like, what in the world is that? Option and control I could never keep straight until I kept staring at the option symbol one day and I saw a person saying, I've got options. So ever since then, I was able to keep all those symbols straight. Shift made sense, like shift up, and command, you see that symbol right on the key. Then control, by elimination, that just looks like a control on a video game controller or something. So when you're using these drop down menus, if you want to speed up your workflow, it's a good idea to notice those symbols. For those on a Mac, I believe on Windows they just give you abbreviations for the keyboard shortcuts, is that right? So like group, for example, that's a good one to remember when designing your logo. Command G, or ungroup, Shift Command G. So like if I wanted to put these all together as a group, whoops, let's bring these Oh, and bringing things to the front, or let's see, I'm using the wrong tool here. Selecting, grouping, Command G, bringing to the front. If you right click, you'll see all the keyboard shortcuts. Bring to the front. What's that? Shift, Command, right bracket, right? So Shift, Command, right bracket, and then I can put these together in a certain way. Select everything, Command G, or if I change my mind, I want to ungroup, Shift, Command G, right? So that's going to just speed up your workflow.